This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. As always, we are proudly in association with Annie's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. And tonight we are 100% British. And as always, we are still 100% Giants. It's the beginning of the Mike Kafka era at MetLife Stadium, as the Green Bay Packers come to town this weekend in his first game as interim head coach, following Brian Daboll's firing on Monday. And joining me tonight are Shane, Craig, and Aaron, as we potentially, well, I'd say potentially, we do have our third starting quarterback of the season as well, under centre on Sunday, in Jameis Winston. So lots to get into tonight, boys. How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's good to have you and Aaron on. Obviously, you couldn't be on the other night, so it's good to have you guys on. And like I say, third starting quarterback, and I think it's going to be entertaining. Is maybe one of the choice words you could use for what we could see with the third quarterback this weekend.
I think I tweeted it out the other day yesterday when it was announced. But the Jameis Winston experience, I'm actually really excited to see what it is, because I've always been a fan of Winston. He's always been boom and bust, and it will be entertaining. We can pretty much guarantee that. The one thing that obviously we'll get is a complete opposite to what Russell Wilson is, but we're going to speak about Jameis probably a bit more later. But yeah, looking forward to another one.
Yeah, good to be on this week. What of all weeks? What a week we've had as Giants fans. The season was done. The season was over. I, for the first time, said we need to fire Daboll, and within 24 hours he was gone. So yeah, that blowing that lead one more time was my last straw for it all. So it was good to see that go. Jameis Winston, I'm more than happy for the rest of his career to see maximum 2 games a season out of Jameis Winston. Any more than that, and he's going to frustrate you with some of the interceptions, but for 1 or 2 games a season, he's going to give you a fun game to watch, and a bit like Russ's game in Dallas, right? That's going to be what you get from Jameis Winston, But too many games, I think you'll get frustrated watching him. But perfect backup for Jacksonville.
Russ Does Dallas is an interesting film.
Not Debbie Does Dallas. Russ Does Dallas. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, what a week it's been. I think obviously myself and Aaron obviously weren't on Tuesday night, and the dust has kind of settled quite quickly on the firing of Brian Daboll, and I think in a weird kind of way, there's kind of maybe some positives to look forward to this weekend. What's it going to be like under Mike Kafka? Is he going to just completely tear up the rule book and tear up the playbook and do what he wants, or are we going to see a very similar sort of offense? We'll get into that in a bit, but yeah, I think last weekend was the last straw for me as well, Aaron. I think it was that final nail in the coffin that it just wasn't acceptable, and then the fallout from the game afterwards, the same bullshit in the press conference, etc., and it was just like we're never getting anywhere with this coach. And as great as it was in his first season, I think Shane, you made a fantastic point on Tuesday in saying that it wasn't his roster, it wasn't his or Joe Shane's roster. It was the roster left over from the Dave Gettleman era, and it just so happened that they came good in that one season. But since then, it's just been trash, and I think it was the right time for him to go. I think it was probably wise to do it now rather than wait until the end of the season, because you at least want to give them that sort of bit of a boost. And you know what it's like if a coach gets fired during like mid season. the team sort of rally around and sort of have that spark of life back in them again. So let's hope we see that this weekend. You know, it's a winnable game against Green Bay. You know, they've not done they've not been great this season so far. I don't think they've been kind of okay. So it's definitely a winnable game against Green Bay. And you know, with Jameis under center, anything can happen because he's not scared of launching the ball long, and he's not scared of putting it in a tight window and throwing a pick or two. So I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday. If you are watching, go on, Shane.
You're not saying bring back Gettleman and Judge. Can I just confirm that that's not what you were saying?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, my thoughts on Joe Shane, or as you called him, Shane, Show Jane. My thoughts on Joe Shane are, yeah, we'll see. I want to see for the rest of the season what happens, and maybe it'd be time for him to go come the end of the season as well. But yeah, I think it was the right time for Davis to go, in all honesty. And you know, we wish him well, and let's hope he's more successful at Penn State than he was at the Giants. And on that note, if you are watching live on YouTube, X or Facebook, get involved in the comments, send us your questions, and get your game predictions in as well, as we'll be calling the game at the end of the show. Don't forget to like the episode, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already, and also feel free to leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice if you're an audio listener. How many stars, Mr. Aaron? It's a 5-star review, because that would be fantastic. As usual, we are starting off with the latest news. I'm handing over to Craig this time to go through the most recent updates, including a move that many of us think is way overdue.
We seem to have made lots of moves, to be honest, and I guess is that indicative of a head coach who's maybe pushing for a lot, even though he's interiming. Firstly, the Broncos signed wide receiver Little Jordan. Sorry. Someone had to do it once. Yesterday, the Broncos signed wide receiver Little Jordan Humphrey off the Giants practice squad. Obviously, the Broncos is somewhere that Little Jordan Humphrey has been before, so he is well known by that franchise. Humphrey was elevated for the Broncos game and the second Eagles game, but he had hit his 3 elevations and was left on the practice squad the last 2 games in favour of Ray McLeod. Little Jordan finishes with 4 catches for 55 yards off 10 targets, and 8 of those targets were in that Eagles game where he caught 4 passes. So who knows? In a responsive move, the Giants have signed Isaiah Hodgins, who was previously with the team from week 10 in 2022 until last season. Hodgins has been on the Steelers practice squad this season, but has not been called up so far. During his time with the Giants, he went for 689 yards, 8 touchdowns in 2 seasons. But in 2024, he had 2 catches for 12 yards and not really utilised. Obviously, we know that Brian Dable was a play caller last year, not Mike Kafka. So I do wonder if we might see something different. I'm not sure if it's too early for Hodgins to be part of it. I don't know. Shane, what are your thoughts? Do you think with the previous that Hodgins has, he can come straight in, or do you think that we're going to have to wait a week to see him?
I see no reason why he couldn't come straight in, especially when you consider kind of how poor the wide receiver group is. I mean, one thing I do wonder is, like, does this maybe show that Dable and Kafka maybe weren't completely on the same page? If the first thing Kafka's had the opportunity to do is bring back a wide receiver that literally, I think we mentioned him 5 weeks ago when Neighbours first went down, that, you know, would you bring Hodgins back? And I think we're all in agreement that in terms of who's out there, who's available, who knows the playbook, it kind of seems an obvious thing to do. So it kind of makes you question that, okay, Dave's knew Hodgins from Buffalo, but you know, were those two maybe on separate pages in terms of, like, kind of who they wanted to bring in? Cause, like I say, the first chance he's had, he's made that move, which it's a common sense move more than anything else.
Aaron, I know that there's a lot of people out there who have been saying that they wanted little Jordan Humphrey called up over the last 2 weeks. I know that you were critical, I think, of maybe some of the fanfare towards little Jordan Humphrey and the fact that some people were maybe, touting him as being the saviour in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, he had one good game for us, right? But he's not. He's had his 3 elevations. I don't think he got a target in one of those games. He's not going to be the long-term answer at receiver. Used to use some Zoomer slang. He's a bit mid, and why not try someone else out and see if and see what we do. Ray McLeod, he's done nothing, but bad results doesn't mean bad process. And he's a guy that has shown some ability as a kick returner, this, that, and the other. So to get the tryout with the things, obviously worked with Dable in his rookie year as well as Dable was still with the Bills. So why not try it out? This is okay. Well, that hasn't worked. We can bring Isaiah Hodgins from the Steelers practice squad onto the roster. Obviously, there's a few roster spots opened up with people moving to IR and things like this. So there was the ability to do that. But I think people have been criticising Shane because they want rid of him. But I don't think this is really a roster mismanagement. And this is, a point maybe I'll get onto a bit later is how much is it the coach? How much is it the GM? If they're working as a team and one of them is compromising for the other one or whatever, we'll get to see some of that now that one of the team members is gone. And we've seen straight away Isaiah Hodgins come back in. Was it Dable that was saying, I don't want that guy, it doesn't do anything for me? And that's why we're bringing him in. I don't know. But that's, yeah, I think, I genuinely don't think Joe Shane's definitely staying. But what we will get to see is he has 7 weeks to show a reason why he will stay. Even if he's involved in the coaching search, that's because the ownership probably don't have it's not their top priority with their health concerns at the moment. And actually, you still need someone to manage the roster with a rookie head coach in the building. So I don't think it's automatic that Joe Shane stays beyond the end of the season. And I do think, we have to win some games down the stretch to change that.
So it was also revealed yesterday that Graham Gano is going back on IR for the second time this season with a herniated disc in his neck. And it's the 4th time he's been on IR in the last 3 seasons. I think this is highly likely that it spells the end of Graham Gano's time with the New York Giants. And potentially, with all the injury issues that he's had, it could potentially be the end of his career in the NFL, which sucks because he was very, very good for us in those early years. Unfortunately, ever since Shane said that he was going to be automatic and decided to go to the toilet for the Cowboys game, Graham Gano has never been the same player. So
you're never going to let us forget that, are you?
Never, because has he been the same player since then?
So what you're saying is we need to do a week 1 meet-up in Birmingham again where the Giants play at 1:30 in the morning, and then I can say the same again and it will reverse it back.
I mean, maybe. That could be the only way to reverse the curse, yeah.
What else?
I think it's
not a lot at this point.
I think it's fair to assume now that Young Hoku will be the Giants' kicker for the foreseeable future, performances depending. However, if there is an issue with Koo, it doesn't matter because weirdly the Giants have signed a 4th kicker to the roster with left footer Ben Sauls joining. Sauls was released by the Steelers practice squad a few weeks ago and has only kicked in the preseason, but he was 4 for 4, including one from 50-plus yards. The Giants did round out their roster moves by signing tight end Zach Davidson and edge rusher Trace Ford. Davidson was a 5th-round pick of the Vikings in 2021. He has only played in 3 NFL games in his career. All 3 were last year with the Bills and mainly on special teams. He did have 1 catch for 5 yards. Ford was with the Giants earlier on this season as a UDFA. He was on the original practice squad, but was then released at the end of August before the season began. Dan,
Hello.
Graham Gano and the Giants kicker situation. What is going on? We said that Gano should have gone on to IR the second he hurt his neck, and we've obviously been critical of other lengthy delays to putting players on IR. Do you reckon there's a chance that we end up seeing Ben Sauls before the end of the year? Because I can't see the team going back to Jude McTominay.
No, it wouldn't surprise me if we did see Ben Sauls, but I think in Koo, I think we've kind of got someone that, you know, for the initial part of his career in Atlanta, he was just reliable as fuck, and then it sort of tailed off towards the end of his time there. And I think there was a couple of times I had him in a fantasy league in the season, and he was that kind of kicker that was kind of automatic. You kind of expect him to make it. What I want to see as well is a kicker that can just smash one in from 65. Like, you know, it's like the likes of Brandon Aubrey, for instance, or the Jags kicker, whatever his name is, just set the record last weekend. You know, I want, you know, why can we not have a kicker like that you can pretty much rely on him from 70 yards? And the issue with Graham Gano, I think, does it come down to Dabes? Does it come down to his poor management of the roster? Because you got to look at Joe Shane in terms of his management of the roster, but he's probably being fed information from the coaches, right? And now all of a sudden that Dabes isn't there, we sign a receiver that we said we should have signed 5 weeks ago, and realistically, when he was released a couple of seasons ago, we all kind of thought, huh? And also, now Graham Gano's on IR again, and when he should have been placed on IR when he found out he had a herniated disc in his neck. Because, let's face it, you're probably not going to play again this season because of that, because that's a pretty serious thing. So why we wait till now to put him onto injured reserve? And I said, personally, maybe it is because Dabes didn't want to put him on there. I don't know. Like, why keep him around if you ain't going to play him? If he's injured and he's not healthy, he's not good to go. He's not healthy. He's got a bad fucking, not just a stiff neck. You know, let's put it out there. He's not just got yeah. And that's not something that you can. That's not something you're going to recover from in a couple of weeks.
No.
It's almost like it should have been done a long time ago.
It's just a random fact what Dan's just mentioned. I just looked it up because I was curious. The longest field goal ever kicked by a player for the New York Giants is 57 yards.
So we haven't even hit 60 yet.
That is held by Graham Gano, who last did it in 2022, and Aldrich Rosas, who hit it in 2018.
Good old Aldrich Rosas.
Aldrich Rosas, mate, yeah.
So I do wonder if Koo will be fully fit. He's not on the injury report, so presumably he's fine. But if anyone's seen the All-11 film, obviously he took over kickoff duties after Gillen's had to go out of bounds. But he gets his head stuck right in there on the tackle. You can't quite see on the All-11 how he does, but he gets in on the tackle and he gets involved. So I do wonder if they're thinking, oh, well, maybe he is carrying something that hasn't actually stopped him practicing, but maybe there was something there. So, yeah, maybe that's why they brought a fourth guy in, knowing that they're not going to elevate McTominay again.
It's interesting.
I was going to say, was it today that he was at Koo was at MetLife?
Yesterday. So I think it was yesterday. Yeah, that was something that Gabriel said that Koo had been kicking at MetLife, which makes perfect sense because obviously you're going to get the weather's not great at the moment over East Rutherford Way, so obviously you're going to get the swirling winds, and it is better to do it inside the stadium where the stadium will manipulate the wind slightly compared to doing something open air or if they're just kicking inside the inside facility. So
he's from a division. He obviously came from the NFC South and kicked a lot inside a dome, so he's not not regularly kicked outdoors.
No. Just before we move on, and I'll quickly go through the injury report. Shane, I just want to take you to Conspiracy Theory Corner for a second, our favourite place.
I love conspiracies.
We needed like a little song for this, don't we?
We do. We need like the X Files
Or a little jingle.
The
Yeah.
X-Files tune. I don't know what the X-Files tune is.
Aaron was giving us a little rendition in the background there, but Dan kind of alluded to it there. Conspiracy theory time. Was our mismanagement of IR due to the fact that Brian Dable is so secretive with injuries and the fallout between him and Joe Shane that potentially happened,
Right?
has caused roster mismanagement this year?
I mean, when you think about it, I mean, like the occasional one or something, you'd be like, nah, probably not. You're probably reaching there. But with how much roster mismanagement we've had, it's kind of like, I think Dan might have put it in the chat earlier on about a certain head coach going to a certain college team, but or it might have been Holty. There's no smoke without fire, and just with the amount of roster mismanagements we've had over the last kind of 2 years, really, or at least 3 since Graham's kind of picked up these injuries, has been a little bit more than
coincidental.
Coincidental. I don't like using big words like that. I'm from Black Country.
Yeah, we know. We'll help out where we can. So Aaron actually sent this through to the group chat earlier about players not practicing today. I haven't seen an official injury report, but players not spotted at practice are Jackson Dart, concussion. Evan Neal's got a hamstring injury.
How has he got that? Flipping burgers?
That would be a wrist injury. Raheem Nunez Rochez has a toe injury. Kayvon Thibodeau a shoulder. That's one to keep an eye on, I think, if Kayvon can't go. And Tyler Nubin with a neck injury. Slayton hamstring, Okereke shoulder, Golston neck were all on the side with trainers. I think they have said as well that Adebo was doing bits, so there is a chance that he returns this weekend. And JMS as well, who's been dealing with a shin injury, was back. So. Yeah, a lengthy injury list, which we're used to as Giants fans by now. But
Standard.
We'll wait and see. But yeah, I'll pass. No, I've been pretty much refreshing. So
yeah, there's nothing on there, is there?
No, the official injury report is out. Dan about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So did not participate in practice. Neal, Dart, Okereke, Slayton, Thibodeau, Golston, Nubin, and Nunez. The limited ones were Adebo knee, Bellinger groin, Illuminor pec, Fidone foot, Flanagan Fowles pec, Neville Hewitt foot, JMS shin, and Dumakeje shoulder. But all of those limited are likely to go, I'd imagine.
Mayo, talk to me. Offensive lineman with a fucking shin injury. Come on.
Well, it does get rough down on the pile. So you don't wear shin pads, if you get
maybe it should.
Where this is likely to happen, it's likely to be your own player. So if you're double teaming a lineman and he breaks off one way, what you often find is the boot will flick up of your own guy will flick up and hit you in the shin. So it's likely to be a friendly flyer type incident. But yeah, it can get, the amount of times what I would do is if I've driven my opponent back on a pass play where I'm not allowed to go downfield, I would turn them 90 degrees and go along the line of scrimmage in the hope that they would trip over someone's legs and make a big pile of their own guy. So yeah, it's certainly something that when it does get rough and tumble on the line, you can catch a boot to the shin, or the other one is usually a stamp on the foot, where someone's trying to get some purchase, puts their foot down hard and puts it on a teammate's foot.
Yeah, that's going to be sore. Yeah, shin injury. Interesting. All right, let's move on to the game then. The Packers. Like I said, it's been an up and down season for them. I think they've been okay. They are in the hunt for a playoff position still, but they've not sort of set the world alight. The thing is, they started off with wins over I think, last year's really hot team in Detroit, and the Washington Commanders, but then they lost to the Browns in a really ugly loss, and then they had that tie with the Cowboys that was just an absolute shootout. So it's kind of like a very sort of, it was a positive start for them. Obviously, losing the game to the Browns was a bit of a sort of black mark on that, but then they then won 3 in a row against the Bengals, Cardinals, and Steelers. But back-to-back low-scoring games against the Panthers and against the Eagles in the last 2 weeks. They're sitting at 5-3-1. They're in third place in the NFC North, behind the Bears, obviously, who we came up against last weekend, and the Detroit Lions. So it's been a bit of a weird one for them. Now there are two faces returning to MetLife on Sunday that will be more familiar with, for different reasons. All-Pro safety Xavier McKinney will be returning to MetLife for the first time since he left the team last season. He's got 2 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, 57 total tackles, and 1 forced fumble this year so far. And he's one of those ones you kind of just wish we had back, And then the second familiar face, and Shane's even more familiar with him, Micah Parsons. He was obviously traded from the Cowboys to the Packers at the beginning of the season. He's got 50 pressures, including 7 sacks so far this season. And both of them have helped the Packers to become one of the sort of stingiest teams in terms of allowing points. They've only allowed 19.6 points a game, and south of 300 yards a game as well. They're 287 yards a game they're allowing. So their defense is pretty stingy. But Aaron, what's your thoughts on coming up against Micah Parsons again, plus the return of McKinney to MetLife?
Yeah, I mean, I think Micah Parsons might be something like second or third in the league in kind of pressures on third down or something like that. So he's come in late. He's maybe not had the sack numbers this season that he was used to in Dallas, but is still affecting the game at critical times, which is maybe more important than just general production. Getting off on third down is, we've seen that ourselves, how difficult it is in this league at times to stop a team on third and fourth downs. So yeah, I'm sure having a less mobile quarterback than Jackson Dart back there will have an effect on how we perform. And obviously, Xavier McKinney. I think if we thought he was this guy, this is what, in hindsight, makes it look like a bad decision. But he hadn't quite played at the level he's played at for Green Bay. Obviously, we've brought in guys in a scheme that maybe would have wasted him in this scheme. We've still got the same fucking defensive coordinator who nobody seems to get any kind of picks. They're not really pirates. They're more like, I don't know what, pussycats back there, because they don't take they don't take the ball away, right? They just play with it. They just play with it. They just tease you, and they don't stop the other team. So is that a scheme thing? And would we have wasted X with us? Obviously, he's done a great job there. I also do wonder. Obviously, he had was it a quad bike incident or whatever while he was missed a few times with us. And I wonder how much there was a bit of a, even from ownership, that's not someone that we can have, we want to give big money to because we don't trust them outside of the thing, that kind of culture side of things. And obviously, we've drafted bad culture guys, but they haven't stuck around for long. And we don't tend to give guys a chance, if they've done something's gone wrong off the field or whatever, we don't tend to keep them around very long. We don't tend to forgive them and this kind of thing. So that could be an ownership philosophy more than it is a GM or a head coach thing.
Yeah, possibly. Could it be a Dapes thing?
Could be.
Could it be a Dapes thing? Maybe he didn't like X. I don't know. You mentioned obviously with having that less mobile quarterback coming into this weekend, obviously with Dart out and Winston starting. Shane, do you think this defense can really sort of turn up the heat on Jameis Winston to make life uncomfortable for him?
Not necessarily. I don't think they're going to need to. I think with Jameis, he's kind of going to be a boom or bust. I mean, I could see him throwing say a 48-yard throw that gets taken to the head for a touchdown, and then on the very next time he gets the ball, I could see him throwing a pick six. Like you just kind of don't know what you're going to get with Jameis. I mean, did you say McKinney's got 2 interceptions on the season? I expect him to double that this weekend. I think
he had 8 last season.
Yeah.
So I reckon he'll double it this weekend because I think he's going to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to kind of want to prove something to Joe Shane, and obviously now Dable's gone. That is what it is. But I think he's going to want to prove something to the Giants organisation. And I think when you've got a quarterback like Jameis Winston that's going to be throwing the ball, there's every likelihood that we could see 3 or 4 interceptions on Sunday. It wouldn't surprise me if James ends with a tagline of kind of like 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Yeah, his infamous 30 for 30 season, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. And I think, I think you're right in terms of they're not necessarily going to have to turn up the heat too much on Winston, because I think this offense is down to a lot of sort of second string guys, obviously, with Neighbours out, with Scatterboo out, with Dart not starting, and, potentially not having JMS, obviously Illuminor's got his pec issue as well. It's kind of like we're losing these, lost a lot of players to injury on this offense, and it's kind of like, well, we need that sort of consistency, and especially on that line, just to keep Winston sort of protected. But I think Micah Parsons could potentially have a field day on Sunday as well. I think him coming in the form he's in currently for Green Bay, I think he could make life particularly difficult for this offensive line. We're used to seeing him playing for Dallas against us, and now obviously with him in Green Bay, it's kind of are we going to see the same sort of thing from him? And
we might do, but bear in mind that PFF have us ranked as the 11th best offensive line in the league at the moment.
Yeah,
and PFF have been generally very, very critical of Giants' offensive lines over the last few years. So we are trending in the right way as a line. Now, the interesting thing will be is how much of that has Dart partially covered.
Masked.
Like masked, versus what Winston might do. So I totally agree. This is like the key matchup to the entire game, pretty much.
And you look at obviously with when we had Russ under center in the first 3 games, how much pressure he was facing. And obviously when he came in the fourth quarter against the Bears, like how much pressure he was facing then as well. So it's almost like you said with Dart, because he was so agile and mobile, maybe sort of covered up half the issues we were having. But at the same time, what we've seen from this offensive line so far this season has been fairly consistent. So it's not all bad news, I suppose. Now here's the history question of the week for you boys. The last time the Giants played Green Bay at home in November was week 11 of 2013, and we came away with a 27-13 win. My question for you is, who scored the 3 Giants touchdowns that day?
Same player?
No, it's 3 different players.
3 different players. Ruben
Brandon
Randall.
Jacobs.
So Craig went Ruben Randall. Ruben Randall was one of them. Three catches, 37 yards and a touchdown. Aaron, who did you say?
Brandon Jacobs.
Brandon Jacobs was also one of them. 5 carries for 9 yards and a touchdown.
It's all on Shane now to get the third player to round us out.
And I don't even fucking know. I'd just guess. I don't even know if he's on the team at this point. Victor Cruz.
Victor Cruz was on the team, and he was the leading receiver that day, but he didn't have a touchdown catch.
I'll take that as a win, the fact that he was even on the team.
Yeah.
Was it a tight end?
No.
Oh,
It was a defensive touchdown.
That's what Will Tye out, Shane. Will Tye is out.
Oh, not Will Tye.
It was a defensive touchdown.
Oh, God, this is where it's going to get funny.
Was Amu Kamara on the team then?
Yes, he got drafted in 2012, but it wasn't Prince.
That's the only kind of cornerback I can think of.
It's too late to be DRC.
Was it? So around this time, I remember it happening. So I don't think Rodgers was fit for Green Bay. So I think they had a backup quarterback in. I have a vague memory of a very athletic defensive lineman scoring, and I think JPP scored a touchdown.
How many hands did he have? JPP, the 24-yard pick six. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Good memory, Mayor. Good memory. All right, then. Bonus point. Who was the Packers starting quarterback that day?
I don't remember the guy because it was before Matt Flynn. Because I know Matt Flynn then went to Seattle on a big contract, but I remember they had a guy before Matt Flynn who was terrible. And they eventually played Matt Flynn instead of him, who was like on a practice squad somewhere else, like the Steelers or somewhere, and came in. But whoever this guy is, he was terrible.
You say he was terrible. Let me just get up his stat line a second. I've got it here. He went, bear with. There we go. He went 24 of 34 for 339 yards. And three interceptions.
Did he ever really play again? Is this going to be obscure beyond obscure?
I think he was kind of a career backup. But he, as far as I'm aware, he did play again. Yeah, he played in 2014. He was at the Packers. 2015, he was at the Packers, and then the last 2 years, 2016, 2017, he was at the Colts, and he did play games in both of those seasons for the Colts.
Go on,
Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, not a chance.
Scott Tolzien.
Not a chance. Shane, ever heard of the mighty Scott Tolzien?
No, is he in the Godfather?
I love it. But no, it's good. Good memory there. Good memory there, Aaron. I'm impressed with the JPP pick six. Well done. 24 yards. Yeah. Cool. All right. Let's go into some little sort of things about this game. So, with Winston starting, obviously, Kafka mentioned in his first press yesterday that Jameis would sort of go above Russell Wilson on the depth chart and would start if Jackson doesn't clear concussion protocol, which obviously he's not now. Like, what does that say to you in terms of like the trust in Russell Wilson at this point? It's almost like, is there zero trust in him to actually do any of to do your job, or do we want to just mix it up and see what we can do with Winston? Anyway, feel free. Feel free. Anyone jump in.
Is it just a free for all at this point?
Go for it. Let's go for it.
I mean, I think for me, one of my mates says to me the other day, says, what's going on with Wilson? Is he going to be cut or what? And I says, I don't know what the crack is, because I'd imagine that kind of before the trade deadline, I'd like to think the Giants would have gone to Russ, look, you're probably not going to be starting again this season. We can trade you or we can cut you. Which do you prefer? Now, my mate's a Seahawks fan, and something I found a little bit interesting he mentioned to me is that Russ was occasionally would call a couple of plays when he was in Seattle. I wouldn't mind tapping into that a little bit, with Kafka as kind of interim head coach. Kind of just see what we might as well try and get something out of him at the end of the day. If he's not going to be playing, see what ideas he's potentially got for play calling, because I don't know if that's an avenue he wants to go down when he calls time on his career. But on that point, I do think I want him to retire at this point, because I just think why diminish your reputation anymore. Like, obviously, you went to Denver, you didn't do great. Okay, you got Pittsburgh to the playoffs last year, but it wasn't anything. It's not the Russ that we're used to. And then he's kind of not really looked like the old Russ at the New York Giants. He's probably looked even worse than the Russ that was at Denver, to be honest with you, apart from that one game against Dallas where he threw for so many yards. But yeah, you know, I do think with Russ, I'd like to see him retire soon. And who knows, maybe if he retires whilst he's here, we, like I say, we tap into that and maybe get him call in a couple of plays and see if it's something, because, you know, Kafka could get this job full time. We can't rule that out at the minute.
Yeah.
We want to bring in an OC. I'm not saying Russell Wilson should be up there for becoming the offensive coordinator if Kafka was to have it, but what you got to lose at this point?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, you know, he's had a lot of success in his career so far. And yeah, the last couple of years haven't been the best for him. And maybe he's in his twilight years, and maybe he should call it a day after this year. But it's an interesting point. It's an interesting sort of question as to, like, will Kafka sort of draw on him to call a couple of plays, and depending on what he sees. I mean, Aaron, like with Jameis, like what do you want to see from him? What do you want to see from him starting this game? Do you want to see that bucket gunslinger and just throw it about, or do you want to see just a little bit of game management and a kind of reason why we have him on a roster? You know.
Yeah, I want to see him come to a professional job. You know, he's going to be the backup next season. He's on a really team-friendly deal, and you know, there's no reason why he's at a stage of the career. He's accepted that he's a backup. He's going to have a media career afterwards, but he could play 3 or 4 years in New York as the backup QB. And if he's, you know, and what we need to see from him is he is a dependable backup. If Jackson Dart gets a concussion again in the future, which if he plays like he does, it's possible it will happen again. To know that he can come off and the line doesn't move 8 points on the game because we've got a backup that's, you know, completely incapable in managing the offense. So I want to see him come and manage the offense. Yes, throw some excitement in there. Be James Winston. We know who you are. Play to your strengths, but come in and think it. I think for me, and I wasn't on Tuesday, but that was what was the fireable offense for me, was when Dart went out, we did blow the lead. That's one element of it. But the total conservatism in play calling because Russ was your QB. And if you do not trust the guy to play QB, either because you don't trust him or he's washed or whatever, why is he your backup?
Why put him out there? Exactly.
So Jameis should have been the number 2, or, you know, keep Jameis as the number 3, but don't have him as an emergency QB. Have him active. We had enough kind of ups and downs of the roster, this, that, and the other, that we probably could have carried a third QB. It wouldn't have hurt us too much, right? Doesn't have to be the emergency QB designation. Bring him in as that, and then if in the situation that did happen, because I'm fairly certain if we get the ball at the half-yard line with Jameis Winston as quarterback, Dable would have ggone for it. If it was Dart, he would have gone for it. But because it's Russell Wilson, he's like, I'm not going for it. I'll keep the field goal. And I'm sure it's that you know, the negativity around that led to the fact that the offense then didn't score any more points to take the game away. Didn't take that 4-minute drive at the end of the game to end the game. You know, that's where I think there was the real issue in the game. And for me, Russell Wilson, whether he's finished or not, he certainly doesn't have the trust of Dable, and it was clearly the end of him as a Giants player. So why have him active in that sense? I know he's the third QB. We, you know, ironically, maybe Tommy DeVito should have been kept and Russ should have been the one that was cut, but I don't think anybody would have expected that at the end of training camp.
I mean, but that's a great point though, because if you don't trust Russ to do the job why put him in the game in the first place? And also, like, if you really distrust him that much, like, why did you name him as starting quarterback to begin the season? You know, from what you've seen of him throughout camp, was he really the best option to start the season? What do you think, Craig?
I think they had to. I think they were tied, and they weren't going to. I mean, let's be honest. They were never going to throw Jackson Dart out there early. That was obvious from the get go. So the only option there was to have Winston and Wilson. Obviously, Wilson was on that 1 year deal, bought in as like not the marquee, but it kind of was the marquee signing. I don't think he did anything in the preseason that hurt his chances. He just didn't do anything that maybe helped his chances. I think it was purely a case of optics. I think actually, if you think about it as well, that the fact that we called for Jackson Dart so early and that they gave it to us was almost like a positive for the coaching staff and for the overall feeling in the fan base, that we ended up having to do that. And it did show, if they had held an open competition and Dart had come in week one and not been great because, he didn't, it was still early at that point and he was still getting used to it, then the expectation of the fan base would have crumbled. But the fact that they put Wilson out there, it took 3 games and everyone could see exactly what Russell Wilson was. It was their case of going like, look, we tried to get in a big name. It clearly hasn't worked and we're now going to pull him. So the more baffling decision to me is the fact that he was QB2 for so long, when you could clearly see he wasn't trusted when he had to come in, when Dable went into the tent and was obviously pissed off about that. That's the baffling thing more than Russell Wilson starting the season, I think.
Yeah, if you're going to bench him, at least put the other guy that's on the sideline. At least give him the opportunity to come into a game, and pick up the game in case of injury. But obviously, talking about coaches as well, like with Kafka being named as interim, obviously it's another like offensive head coach. Obviously Daves was an offensive head coach. Joe Judge was a special teams head coach, if that's even a thing. And before that, Pat Shermer, and before so it's almost like we kind of go down the line of having an offensive head coach for a while now, and it's almost like, would you rather have an offensive head coach to sort of help and mold and shape sort of Jackson Dart's future, or would you rather have a defensive one that can really sort of fine tune this defense, because God knows it needs help? What do you reckon, Craig?
Sorry. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think if you look at all of the rumoured head coaches that are being tied with the Giants at the moment, the majority of them do seem to be defensive-minded. Bill Belichick, Brian Flores, Minter. There's a lot of defensive-sided coaches that are being touted around. You look at, what Shane and I wanted Vrabel, and Vrabel's not one of these like mastermind offensive players. He's a tough-nosed like defensive coach. Like, that's the sort of thing that we are kind of calling out for. I think that the disadvantage of looking at an offensive coach when we've tried it so many times and it's failed is that we're looking at offensive head coaches to come in and call plays, and I don't think that that's working. We need somebody who is going to be that, people call it the CEO, don't they? The CEO of the operation sort of thing. Someone who can come in and manage the game and can lean on his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator to do everything that they need to do. But yeah, I don't know. In a weird way, it feels too early, but I do feel like we need somebody. We just need someone with experience. I think that's more my criteria than whether it's offensive or defensive, is somebody who's not just coming in to be or from being an offensive or defensive coordinator so soon.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll come to you with this one, Shane. Like, obviously, with the regards of having experience, Do you want to see another rookie head coach, or do you want to see someone that has that proven in-game experience in the NFL?
No, I want proven now. Like I said, I've mentioned this before, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it just feels like we're going to keep try hiring a first-time coach and just hope that we land on our feet and we get lucky and one finally works. Like, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day. But you know, I think we've tried too many times now. I mean, we had Shermat. Obviously, he had a brief stint. I think it was in charge of the Browns probably about 10 years ago now that didn't really work out. But you know, we've tried Joe Judge, we've tried Brian Dable. Now I'm to the point where I just want someone who's proven, who knows what he's doing. And as much as there is some names out there that would be new head coaches that are quite appealing, you know, the Seahawks OC, Kubiak, I think it is. You've got the Rams DC, the Packers DC, the Colts DC. They're all kind of got something that does intrigue me a little bit. Obviously, Anarumo with the Colts previously worked with Joe Shane. He was the DB coach here back in 2018. You've got the Rams DC. His granddad was Don Shula, I think it was. So, you know, there's kind of there is things that appeal to me with a brand new head coach who's never done it before. But I just think we've tried that the last few times. It's not worked. Let's just get someone in who knows what they're doing, who knows what it takes to win. And that's why, like, kind of me and Craig have spoken about it a couple of times over the last couple of episodes that, you know, if a Harbour becomes available or even a Tomlin becomes available, then you've got to aggressively pursue that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Shane. Aaron, you'll remember Ben McAdoo. Obviously, he was the last defensive-minded head coach that we had. Would you want to see somebody that is that sort of defensive-focused coach, or again, like, would you prefer someone that would?
I think McAdoo was offensive. I think Parcells was the last defensive coach that we had.
Was McAdoo?
I'm pretty sure McAdoo was offense because it was the Wackadoo offense.
Yeah, you might be right, actually.
Yeah, so I think literally, and Coughlin was a wide receivers coach with us, or a quarterbacks coach at some point before he went off to do Boston College and things like that. So Coughlin was an offensive coach. Jim Fussell was an offensive coach. So I think literally
Parcells, yeah, you're right,
was the last guy. To be perfectly honest, I see the benefits of a defensive coach, given our defensive team, and actually to get the best defensive guy in, you might need to offer them a head coach position over because of the all of the best defensive minds are either coordinators or head coaches already, and it's like, to get that step up into our team, you might have to offer them the head coach position. I want the best guy for the job. I don't want to put any criteria on them having experience, haven't had thing. The best guy for the job is the criteria for me. If that's a rookie head coach or if that's now, having said that, if Tomlin, Stefanski, Harbaugh become available, they are probably the top of the list straight away. Because I think that they're experienced head coaches, they've done good jobs where they've been. But they haven't got over the line the last couple of the years. And the thing, Stefanski's kind of different. So obviously, the Browns have been terrible, but we've seen how they've mismanaged their roster with Deshaun Watson, and he still finds the way to get them competitive in the AFC North in that kind of hard division. But Stefanski's a guy that if he becomes available, he'll be snapped up by a team straight away. But it's that kind of head coach GM thing as well. Like, we've got Joe Shane potentially sticking around for one more year. Will he get extended, and will he get the say in the coach? I want to bring up a point just around that I've picked up in the week. So if you go and look at the end of season Mara interview at the end of 2021, and go about 8 minutes into that video, there's someone asks him about, do you think having family ownership or having control is influencing football decisions? He says, we don't make any decisions. If the head coach and the GM agree, they get on with it. I don't intervene. But that immediately tells me that what happens if the head coach and the GM don't agree? And in this situation now where and it was reported by Paul Schwartz, which if you know Paul Schwartz as a beat writer, he is a guy that comes from he gets his news directly from ownership. A lot of the time he's linked in, he's been on the beat a very long time. If he's putting it out, it's coming from someone in the ownership. And the way it went down the firing was that as Tish and Mara had a phone call and discussion about what they were going to do, decided that they were going to fire Brian Daboll, told Brian Daboll he was fired, and then told Joe Shane that they'd fired Brian Daboll and that Mike Kafka was going to be the head coach. So it wasn't a Joe Shane decision to promote Mike Kafka to being the head coach. It was ownership. So immediately that is ownership intervening in the decision-making process, because they have picked the head coach for the rest of the season, not Joe Shane as the GM. He have picked it in that kind of thing. So if you take something like that, how much has ownership got their thumb on the scale in these decisions that we've seen that we all disagree, that we're all saying maybe that was Brian Daboll's fault, or maybe it wasn't Brian Daboll's fault. Maybe Brian Daboll disagreed with Joe Shane and ownership sided with Joe Shane. So it's really, really confusing. We're never going to know from the outside. I don't think that sort of thing is going to be captured on Hard Knocks when we've got that to look forward to in next month. But just wanted to kind of touch on that point that it's probably a little bit more complex than we can see from the outside.
Yeah, I do have thoughts on the ownership issue that everyone seems to have with our ownership group, in the fact that at the end of the day, it's their money. They can do what they want. And also everyone goes, oh, but our ownership's corrupt and our ownership has too many fingers in the pies because they've got family members ingrained in every part of our organization that aren't doing very well and aren't doing good jobs. But we're not the only ones. This isn't a New York Giants problem. The Bengals have the same. The Chargers have the same. The Colts, the Bucks, the Vikings, the Texans, the Chiefs. They all have people inside their teams picking up different jobs. Now, a lot of them won't have football-related jobs. The Texans, the wife of the Texans owner is their community person. But you do have people like, there you go, the Chargers. John Spanos, who is Dean Spanos, the owner's son, runs football ops, whereas AG Spanos, his other son, runs business ops. So they're completely in control of everything that's there. We aren't the only ones. And I think that a lot of fans need to kind of get that into perspective, that we're not the only ones. It's not a nepotism thing, because nepotism runs wild in the NFL. We're not the only team where it happens. Are there certain members of the family in jobs that maybe they're not doing a great job from the outside in? Maybe. But from the inside, maybe they're viewed differently. In the same way that, like, Joe Shane has revolutionized our scouting department, but from the outside, we wouldn't give a fuck about that, because all we would look at is the results on the field. So I do think that as much as the Mara and Tish families get spoken about a lot about, oh, do they get involved? Don't they get involved? Does John Mara turn around to people like Saquon Barkley and say, I don't want you to leave because you sell the most jerseys and you bring the most money in? But of course, because it's a business and he's putting his money in and he wants to get his money out. Like, I think a lot of the arguments from Giants fans around the family ties side of the Giants is reactionary. And the second that we start turning the corner, because there are loads of teams that also go through these shit periods that we're going through now, the moment we turn the corner, everyone will love them again.
Yeah. And let's not forget who was in charge at the beginning of this century when the Giants were actually good. and we won 2 Super Bowls. Who are the owners then? They've not changed. So it's kind of a bit of a moot point in my personal opinion.
I think the issue is the fact that certain people have come into the organisation not too long after we won that Super Bowl, and it's gone to shit since then. And other teams might have family members ingrained, but they've had some form of success, whether it be going to the playoffs a couple of times, etc. I mean, I've seen today that they reckon, his name's escaped me, the Notre Dame head coach has got fans within inside the Giants organisation. Well, a quick Google tells you Tim McDonald went to Notre Dame. So you don't need to be a genius to work out who it is that's probably inside the Giants organisation that went to Notre Dame that is a fan of the Notre Dame head coach.
Yeah.
But I don't see why that's an issue though.
Which bit? Sorry.
Well, I don't see why that coming out is an issue.
It's just a case of there's one person and he's interested because he probably went to Notre Dame. There's going to be bias there.
But I've seen but I guess you'd have that at any job. You'd have that anywhere. Like you could have somebody who's gone to a college or played on a team or coached on a team, and then you need a new GM and you're one of the senior people and you go, well, I've seen this guy. Like to me, I don't see, because some people have been going, oh, well, that's pretty much a given. Why is it? Why would you not entertain something like that? Like it just baffles me how like just a little thing like that can be kind of spun, I guess. It's just a weird thing to me. I just don't maybe see the news story behind it.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, why is it relevant? Why is it important? Like, surely what's most important to the viewer and to us and to everybody else is, like you said, that on-field product, right? Not what's going on behind the scenes, because we'll never really know what's going on behind the scenes, because it happens behind the scenes for a reason.
I guess you could turn around and say, oh, well, somebody in the Giants organization likes Steve Spagnuolo. Of course they do, because he was the defensive coordinator with us when we won a Super Bowl. You know, you could probably map out the entire NFL and everyone's worked somewhere. I get the point behind certain family members coming in and it going to shit, but like, how much pull do they have? We'll never know.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's almost a case of, is it because that person has come in? Don't know. You never know. Anyway, let's.
Sorry, just one very, very quick point. I think for me, it's the fact that they say we don't have our thumbs on the scale, but they clearly do. And it's like yes, okay, you've hired a GM, you've hired a thing, but if you're going to have a GM run the organization, they need to run the organization. It shouldn't be a GM and coach, and the owner can put a coach in underneath the GM. The GM puts the coach in. Right, that's the whole point of the of kind of the role, or maybe some places they do it the other way around. Right, you have an executive head coach. Obviously, Bill Belichick was in that stage in New England where the GM was kind of reporting to the head coach. He was just doing all the contract side of things. The problem is, in that statement they're saying if the two guys agree, we don't get involved. Well, actually, no. Somebody needs to carry the can, and that's part of the reason that accountability doesn't happen in this organization, and part of the reason why you can go 20-44 or whatever the record is, and the GM still keeps his job because he's not necessarily accountable for the on-field performance.
They did say that 4 years ago, though.
Yeah, but I think that was before they hired these guys. I agree, but but that's still a. If that's the mentality in the organization, right? Yeah. I think that's, you can't put all of this on the GM and you can't put all of this on the thing. But if people aren't taking accountability, and what we've seen in the reports going into this season is Joe Schoen was noticeably distant from Dable, kind of separating himself out already, not taking the accountability for the things and this kind of thing. But it was Schoen that apparently campaigned to keep Dable his job at the end of last season. So it's kind of like there's a weird dynamic going on. If you're backing Joe Schoen, he has full control over the hiring of the coach, and he gets everything, and he should be in charge of the roster, the coach, all of those decisions. Obviously, there's certain things that owners have to sign off on in terms of like guaranteed money, because they do physically have to put money up into escrow and all that kind of thing. But if Joe Shane's the GM, extend him, have him pick his head coach, and if it's still shit, fire them both. Don't have this kind of like separation of accountability.
I guess the reason that they won't extend him is because if they do think, oh, we're going to give you a brand new head coach, but you've only got a year on your contract, and then they fire him, they've got to pay him.
I don't think it matters that the amount of money that they have as ownership. I think the worst thing is, I think bringing. I can foresee Kafka being given an elevation and having a 1-year contract under Joe Shane, and they'll both get renewed at the end of the season next season if it goes well, and they'll both be out the year after. And they've just kicked the can down the road for another year. I can see them doing that. I think if you're going to go, I still think there's a possibility Joe Shane gets fired at the end of the season. If we go 2-7 or whatever's left, but if we manage to beat up a Washington team without their quarterback, a poor Raiders team, and beat Dallas in week 18 in a nothing game that means nothing, and we win 3 games, does he keep his job, get an extension, or to go through the Kafka route of keeping Kafka and Shane on a 1-year head coaching deal, and then you kick the can down the road and finally you're not resetting until next year? I think, I understand why Joe Shane's still there. I don't understand why Shane Bowen's still there. I just think that there's a real world problem. I think he says in his presser today, Shane Bowen's quoted that he put some of the blame on himself for the reason why Brian Dable's been fired, because they haven't been able to hold on to leads. No fucking shit. Like, this is a defense that's really, really bad, right? The only defense worse than us is the Bengals, which that's it.
Very true.
And we can't hold on to those leads. So we are at the stage where you have to if you're going to go with Joe Shane, and there's some, you will have a conversation down the road. There's some merits for it. You have to. I would rather you extend him and let him have a head coach, and then they go 2 more years before you touch anything again and go, right, you've got 2 years to make us the playoffs. And if not, clear the house again, and we'll start at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a talking point as we go through the rest of the season. What does the future of Joe Shane look like? I'm sure it'll be a kind of a hot topic for the last sort of 6-7 weeks of the season as we go into December. But let's fire through these game predictions then before we go. That's the season so far. So Kev is 4 out of 10. So Kev's 4 out of 6. Aaron 2 out of 10. Aaron's 2 out of 8. Craig 4 out of 10. Myself and Shane, the big boys, still up there. Still 1 game between us. We need to go against each other, Shane, 1 week. You need to. I mean, it's going to come down to me picking the Giants and you not, isn't it? Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's why there's only one. There's 1 between us. So Kev's prediction, Craig, have you got that? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, Kev's gone for the Giants.
No surprise there.
He's gone 27-24 to the Giants.
Sorry, have I missed something? 4 in a row, and I've fucking been completely unaware of it.
Eat that dove.
And he's fully into the Jameis Winston experience, Shane.
He's drunk the Kool-Aid already.
I'm into the Jameis Winston experience. I don't think we're going to win, though.
Well,
spoilers, Shane. God almighty.
So,
Aaron.
Yeah, so I'm into an experience that I've seen a few times this season, and it's the Shane Bowen experience. So I said my prediction, and I know we don't have this much in there. I had the Giants 17-7 at the end of Q3, and it to finish Giants 24, Green Bay 28.
Yeah. What was it you said on Tuesday night, Craig? The Giants cycle? No expectations. The Giants get frisky. Oh, we've got an injury. Oh, we lose again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's about
so
right.
Your prediction then? Are we going in that cycle?
I can't actually remember exactly my prediction because, like I said a million times, I don't write it down because I'm an idiot. But I think it was 1913. Oh, look at that. He's got it. 1913 to the Packers. And here is why. The Packers are top 5 in points allowed. In the terms of least points allowed. They're also top 5 in least amount of total yards per game. So they are struggling. This will not be a high-scoring game, I can't imagine. I think even with Jameis Winston, I just feel like this is going to be a bit one of those like turgid affairs, really.
Fair.
Denver was struggling and have struggled against the Raiders just this last week with their lovely 10-7. Green Bay coming off a 10-7. What happened in the fourth quarter?
Well, onto my prediction. So I think it's got just that circle of the Giants written all over it. It really do. 31-17 Packers.
Apparently, it doesn't want to bring it up. It doesn't like your prediction, Dan. You've literally. Is it there?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see it. There we go. It's appeared for me.
Yeah. 31-17 Packers. No other real reason than I just kind of almost think the season's done now.
Yeah, and Craig had a go at me for spoilers, but it's not really a spoiler, is it? Let's be honest. I've had the Giants to lose every week so far this season, and that trend continues. I don't know why I had Green Bay 13-24, 13-28. Oh shit. Yeah, why? Because they're playing the Giants. That's my reason.
Yeah, and also I think we lead this game 17-14 at one point. I don't know what point that is. I don't know whether it's a fourth quarter capitulation again, but I think we lead this game, and then the defense just then falls to shit and we lose. Yeah. So Kev's low wolfing it, so I hope he's howling away. Let's see what happens on Sunday.
If you want a bit of excitement, I don't know if anyone followed my a little betting tip last week of a Jackson Dart anytime touchdown and to hit the under points, which both came in. I put that in a parlay that came in at 20-1 on that game. If you're looking for a little bit of action on this one, the current line for Jameis Winston passing line is 228 yards. I think that's an over all day.
All day long.
Yeah, even against this Packers defense. Also, you could pair that with a Jalen Hyatt anytime touchdown.
No.
Everyone was so high, and then you said Hyatt, and everyone went, "No, you've lost me. You've lost us."
I'd rather pair it with Isaiah Hodgins anytime touchdown.
Yeah, he's not on the list yet.
At least he has a chance. He's got more of a chance than Jalen Hyatt.
I would say Slayton, but the hamstring worries me at the moment. But if he goes, definitely Slayton anytime touchdown.
If I'll just get these bad betting tips in his own bet, so not our group bet, that'll be spot on.
Okay, there we go.
So Slayton actually leads. He's like third in the league in all time history in 30+ yard touchdowns for the Giants. I think Amani Toomer and Odell Beckham are the only guys ahead of him. He's within 3 of taking the lead. So
don't do it, Steve. It's not worth it. You're going to lose your money.
Yeah.
You're going to lose your money.
Yeah. Look for a James. If Slayton goes, look for that deep touchdown from Jameis for sure.
Interesting, nice. Any predictions in the comments, Craig, before we sign off?
Yeah, and it's pretty much a whitewash. 21-10 to Green Bay from Darren, 27-6 to Green Bay from Holty, and 24-17 from Steve there.
Nice. So Kev is literally lone wolfing it this week. Wow. But then there's no real surprise there. Let's face it. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for this evening. We'll be back on Tuesday to review the game at the usual time, 8:30. So make sure you tune in then for what could be quite an interesting game. I think we just had one more prediction coming very last minute. 2 giant goofballs. Evening. Got on 27-24 Packers. So there we go. Anything else to add before we go, guys?
Nope. all good, I think.
I love that as a no. Let's just get this game over and done with.
We've been going an hour and 15. We don't need another 10-minute outro.
let's just get this game over and done with and move on to next week. Check out the socials for the latest news. Follow the links in the description to find where we are. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. Hit the bell to be notified on when we go live. And thanks to everyone for watching and getting involved in the comments this evening. As usual, we appreciate all the love. And my thanks as ever go to Shane, Craig, and Aaron for joining me. We're signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.